Greetings metalheads and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George and today I have another instalment of underrated albums for you. Another album recommendation, an album that I think is wildly and unjustly overlooked and ignored. Doesn't get nearly enough attention and credit that it deserves. Today's underrated album is from, and it's an interesting backstory actually. It's from a band called Torture Killer. Now this band, they took their name from quite a successful, quite a fan favourite 6 Feet Under track. 6 Feet Under, of course, being a legendary Florida death metal band. One of the true greats, in my opinion, of that scene. This band, however, is from Finland, and they're originally effectively a tribute band to 6 Feet Under, playing 6 Feet Under covers. But this album, entitled Swarm, from 2006, features ex-Cannibal Corpse vocalist and current, and also the mastermind behind 6 Feet Under, legendary vocalist that he is, Mr. Chris Barnes on vocals. And that is a really interesting combination, because you've got a 6 Feet Under, effectively what they were, a 6 Feet Under tribute band, but a Scandinavian death metal band fronted by Chris Barnes for this one album. This was the only album that Chris did with the band. This was released through Metal Blade Records. So this is no sort of small, low-budget business. This is, of course, a big label, and this is a big name in death metal. Chris Barnes, everyone knows Chris Barnes if you're a death metal fan, because he is a very polarizing vocalist. He's a very polarizing figure. Some people absolutely love him, and some people take the piss and just don't like him. And to be honest, I personally am a big Chris Barnes fan. I really like the first 4 Cannibal Corpse albums, which featured Chris Barnes on vocals. Eaten Back to Life is one of my favourite sort of early death metal albums. That's one I frequently revisit. But also Tomb of the Mutilated, of course, and a personal favourite being The Bleeding. An absolutely freaking phenomenal album. One of the best Cannibal Corpse albums in my opinion, certainly from their early catalogue. But then I am actually a bigger 6 Feet Under fan than I am a Cannibal Corpse fan, simply because I just love the freaking groovy nature, absolutely infectiously groovy, but also crushingly heavy as well, nature of 6 Feet Under. So when years ago, because I've had this in my collection for years and years, and I think I picked it up on Amazon maybe a decade ago for like £3 or something silly. And I remember just taking a chance purely because of that absolutely revolting cover. Being a big fan of zombie movies and things like The Walking Dead, I was intrigued, and reading that it was an album fronted by a personal favourite death metal vocalist, Mr. Chris Barnes, I absolutely had to take a chance. And I'm glad that I did, because I love this album. This is so underrated. If you're a 6 Feet Under fan, then you'll love it, because it has all of the groove that 6 Feet Under do, but it's also got that kind of bulldozing slab riffing going on that we get with bands like Cannibal Corpse. It also reminds me of Obituary at times. So this is where we're coming from. Think 6 Feet Under, think Obituary, think Cannibal Corpse, think good old school death metal. That's what we're getting here. It sounds more akin to the US death metal style. Bands like I've mentioned there, 6 Feet Under, and also Massacre, another one that comes to mind. Obituary, definitely. Think more of that. Think less Entombed and Dismember. There's a lot less of that. Less kind of fuzz and more abrasive riffing. But what we do get is some really cracking material. We kick off the album with essentially an intro piece in Swarm, where Chris is doing this really menacing, bestial kind of vocal. It's almost like haunting stuff. It's really, really killer. Absolute winner for me. And the bulldozing slabs of chugging riffs. It's absolutely freaking delicious. Absolutely love it. Then we've got Forever Dead, the second track, which is almost a bit of an epic. I'm not going to lie, it has some seriously grand riffs in it, bulldozing stuff. I mean, abrasive, bludgeoning riffs. But we also get this from the sort of midway through the song, throughout the end. We've got this really big, very grand section. It's very interesting. Death metal, it can be delivered in a very epic way, and that is a fine example of epic death metal. A Funeral for the Masses is a more of a sinister, kind of up-tempo, a little bit faster pace track, as is Multiple Counts of Murder. This is good stuff. I mean, you could probably gauge from the song titles that this is definitely going to appease the horror movie fans and the fans of the traditional subjects and nature of old school death metal, if you like. Think Cannibal Corpse with all those albums, disgusting covers, album titles, song titles that are absolutely revolting. You're going to love that. You're going to love this if you love that, I should say. Obsessed with Homicide. Again, some seriously groovy stuff. Fantastic riffing. Cannot fault it. And what I should mention, actually, that the musicianship is tight as well. The bass is distinguishable, and I think that's really important, certainly in this sort of visceral, gritty, old school death. Sadistic is another one. Absolute standout moment. It's got some amazing groove in there, but it's also full throttle at times. We've got some serious crunch to those riffs, real foundry hammer stuff. Cannibal Gluttony, I Killed You, which is obviously very sinister and creepy. Then we got the last two tracks there, Heading Towards the Butchery, which is an absolute hair raiser. It's freaking great. Just love those riffs. And Chris's vocals, fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And the closing track there, A Violent Scene of Death. Absolutely awesome. I will admit that this album does sound a lot like 6 Feet Under. And I mean, the album is also produced by Chris Barnes as well. So this is almost like Chris Barnes finding a band that he likes and saying, yeah, I'll front that band. I like what you've got going on there, and you clearly like what I do and my vocals. So yeah, I'll do the album. I'll produce it. It works. It's freaking great. This is the best 6 Feet Under album that 6 Feet Under never made. Put it that way. Swarm by Torture Killer. Personal standout tracks. If you need to be convinced, if you're still not quite, taken with the idea that you've got Chris Barnes fronting a Finnish death metal band, old school death metal band, then if you just check out Forever Dead, Sadistic, and Heading Towards the Butchery. Check out those 3 tracks. Or, if you're feeling really brave, check out the whole album. It's about 37 minutes long, so it's not a massively long album by any means, but it's an absolute bulldozer. I know I've said it many times already, but if you like Chris Barnes, then this is Chris Barnes at probably his best. I do think that the clarity as well in his voice is really impressive. Chris Barnes is to death metal what Lemmy is to heavy metal or rock and roll, because although Chris has obviously got a very, very unique death vocals and death growls, although he is growling, you can hear what he's saying. You can hear the lyrics, just like the greats like George Fisher or Cam Lee. And he can do it just as well as any of those guys. This isn't just mumbling. This isn't just growling for the sake of it. This is pronunciated. This is projected stuff. And Chris sounds fantastic. I think he sounds freaking great. I prefer his latter albums, if you like, from 6 Feet Under, although albums like Haunted and Warpath, bit of a funny album that it is, it's still good, but Maximum Violence, albums like that absolutely crush in my opinion. But Undead, Unborn, Crypt of the Devil, absolutely freaking amazing albums. And this album, Swarm, is definitely going to satisfy the hungers and the thirsts for death of any fans of those particular albums. So check it out. Torture Killer from Finland, fronted by a legendary death metal vocalist, Mr. Chris Barnes. Check it out. If you're a fan, what are your thoughts and opinions on this album? If you've never heard it, check it out and let me know what you think. I'm very interested to hear. Thank you very much for watching, my friends. Do feel free to like and subscribe. As always, it's very much appreciated. Do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations. But above all, my friends, take care of yourselves, and as always, stay heavy.